Will Tom Brady retire?
He probably should walk away, Skip, but no one wants to walk away on a down note. Considering how he played the entire season, considering how he played on Monday night, he doesn't want to leave on that note. And I get it, but it's just hard to walk away, Skip, when you've had the career that he's had and to walk away on that down note. Now, he probably should have left well enough alone. And when he left last year, stayed, because what we were talking about, Skip, 5,000 yards passing. I think he had 5,000 yards passing, 43 touchdowns, led the league in passing touchdowns. I think he was second to Justin Herbert in passing yards. So he probably should have left on that note. And then everybody, myself included, and I know you would have said it, you see what he did. He had another year in him. Now people are starting to say, I don't know. Should Tom just go ahead and walk away? And I'm sure he's having some of those thoughts himself. But as he surveys the landscape, okay, who wants a 46-year-old quarterback? And do we have the necessary tools to prop him up? You need an outstanding offensive line. You need young, talented, uber-talented wide receivers. Because now, Skip, it used to be Tom Brady could take average guys and make them extraordinary. Now he needs extraordinary guys to make him. So for me, I just think he probably should step away. But the team, as I'm looking out there, says, okay, where do you think he goes? I think the Raiders are probably the best option because he's very familiar with the head coach. He was his offensive coordinator for at least a decade, off and on. They got a very, very talented skill group, wide receivers. Devontae Adams is a first-team All-Pro again. Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing. Now, do you bring him back? What's going to be the number that you bring him back at? I like Hunter Renfrow. I like Darren Waller, who was nicked all year long, but he's still a top 3, top 4 tight end in all of football. So with that being said, Skip, and you look at the other all-time greats. Jordan. We just look at Jordan. You told me so many times before, I don't even look at the Washington. I don't look at those Washington years.
I just gave it up. I gave in to him. I just kept saying he earned the right to go do that. If he wants to subject himself to that, be my guest.
Yes. So when he
came, remember, he'd been out for 3 years.
Okay. And so Jerry Rice ending in Seattle. That's a trivia question.
Yeah.
Where did Jerry?
I don't remember.
Exactly.
But I do remember him ending with the Raiders in a Super Bowl. Yeah. He was pretty good.
He was pretty good. Yeah. Over 100 yards. I think he had 2 touchdowns in that game. And Willie Mays. Yeah, he stumbled around the outfield for the Mets, Skip, but he's still arguably one of the top 5 players to have ever played the game.
He's in my top 5.
And Tom Brady will still be able to hang that on his resume. Do y'all remember those 10 Super Bowls? I won 7 of those things. I got 5 MVPs. So for me, Skip, I think he probably should step away, but that's his decision. And I know one thing about great athletes, Skip. They do not want to end on a down note.
Okay.
So if anything, he's going to want to come back and try to rectify the wrong that was this season.
Remember his message when he unretired?
Yeah.
Unfinished business, right?
Yes.
Well, I think he's still got even more unfinished business, right? 8 and 10 worth of unfinished business, right? Okay. You make a lot of good points. Everybody is making a lot of good points because pointedly, a lot of people are now saying, ooh, it's time to go home. All I've heard for the last 24 hours is, Tom just looked old. It's starting to feel awkward. Where is this heading? Please, Tom, give it up. Give it a rest. Hang him up.
Right.
His father, once upon a time, this is maybe 10 years ago, told the New York Times, I'm afraid they're going to have to put him in a straitjacket and pull him off the football field. And maybe that will be the case at some point, which would probably indicate he would try to play again next year.
Yeah.
And now stories are coming out of the woodwork that this, that, and the other team wants him. And the one on the Raiders is that somebody inside the Raiders considers Tom Brady a program changer for the Raiders next year. Program changer. And as I have reported for now, I don't know, it's been 3 weeks, month maybe, I know for a fact the people inside the Buccaneers want him badly to come back.
Right.
And even a month ago, they were saying, we still consider him better than 99% of the quarterbacks in this league. All told, all of his wisdom and just on the experience factor, they still consider him at the top of their list.
He's a top draw, Skip. Okay. They sell out every home game now.
All right, got it. Now, here's what's amusing to me about the big picture of this. Once Tom hit 40, now he's shattering the mold because after 40, you just can't. You can't do this anymore.
No.
It's just too hard.
Right.
But after he hit 40, something changed pretty dramatically. He needed some protection, just a modicum, he needed a respectable amount of protection because he's not going to stand firm anymore because he can't.
No.
He's too smart. If he's going to last any longer, he can't take what you'd call a quote unquote kill shot, a career ending kind of shot in the mouth, in the head, in the shoulder, whatever it might be. You just can't subject yourself. He's too wise for that. He's been doing this for too long. He knows I got to take some punishment. I thought he took some the other night, but the point is, you can't take that shot, which created that throw that got intercepted in the back of the end zone, and it was the game changer the other night. And I think the whole thing swung on that interception, and he'd never thrown one as a Buccaneer in the red zone. He had 419 attempts before he threw that one. Right. And it was a duck-away throw. It was, oh, my, and I'm going to throw it. And he ducked so hard and so quick, he didn't get enough on the ball. And it hangs up there. And my defense has been, if nothing else, opportunistic because it led the NFL in takeaways. That's all I got going on my defensive side. And guess who was there? J-Ron Kerr says, thank you very much. I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall. I will pull this in. And we just got out of this with unscathed. We gave up no points.
And you was about to be down 7-6.
About to be 7-6 thanks to my kicker. We're going to get to my kicker who kicked me right in the you-know-what. We'll do him in just a few minutes. Okay, so now I want to remind people of this. After Tom hit 40, when he looks bad in a football game, he looks really home bad. Yeah. Okay? I'm going to remind everybody. Just walk me back through this. What happened his final game as a New England Patriot? Do you remember this one?
Yeah.
It's at home against the Tennessee Titans. They lost 20-13, and I must say, I thought he looked pretty bad.
He did.
He looked, dare I say, and the game ended on a pick six by, guess who? Logan Ryan, now his teammate again with the Buccaneers.
He should have been two, because remember, he dropped one right before the half.
One. Okay, but he just waltzes a pick six in at the end of the game. Tom goes 20 of 37 for 209 yards, no touchdowns, and that pick. QBR was below average at 41. They lost 20 again to 13. So he managed 13 total points in his final swan song game as the greatest New England Patriot. Okay, just remember that. Okay, then he goes in the pandemic to the Buccaneers, and we're like, what, to the Buccaneers? They were 7-9 the year before, but Jameis was the turnover machine of all time. And we're thinking, well, if Tom can just kind of cut the turnovers in half, maybe they could be pretty good. And they started to be pretty good, but not in the first game because they got thrown into the fire at New Orleans. And what's he do in the first game? He throws a pick six to Jack Rabbit. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And then remember his fourth game is at home against the Chargers, and he throws another pick six, this one taking back 76 yards. And people are saying, Tom, maybe you shouldn't have tried this. It's going to be embarrassing for you. You're going to look like Jordan in Washington. And then remember the fifth game at Chicago. Do you remember this? Do you remember?
Was that early? Wow, it was that early, huh?
No,
I thought it was a little later.
The fifth game. This is Thursday night at Chicago against Nick Foles. And it's, dare I say, it's pretty pathetic. They managed
2019?
2019, you got it. Good memory. And they managed 19 total points. He threw for 253 and one touchdown, no interceptions, but he got sacked 3 times, and he got the you-know-what knocked out of him by Khalil Mack early in the fourth quarter. And I think he got concussed, but I don't know. He was stumbling and fumbling around, and it looked pretty sad at the end of that game. And then came the all-timer. Sunday night at home, this was in early November against New Orleans. Their arch rival, they'd already lost at New Orleans. Well, they didn't just lose this time. They got blown off the field. It was 38-3. I'm going to remind everybody, Tom Brady scored a grand total of 3 points in that game. This is week 9. He threw for a grand total of 209, no touchdowns, and guess what? 3 interceptions, got sacked 3 more times, had a QBR of 4. 0 to 100, had a QBR of 4, which if you look at the whole year, I doubt there are maybe a couple under 4, but that had to rank, that had to be a bottom 5 QBR for the year.
Remember they kicked the late field goal to keep him getting shut out.
They did. 38 to a late 3. Okay, just remember, when he looked bad, he looked really bad. And the next day I had to come in here, and I can't remember what you said, but I'm sure everybody was saying, you know, Tom, you screwed this one up. You should have just called it a career and gone home.
When I think he threw another tablet
I believe he did in that game. And yet, coming off that game, you know what happened. Suddenly they figured it out. The defense caught fire.
Right.
He got better. They got better. They go to New Orleans and win a game against Drew Brees, and then they go up to Lambeau and somehow win a game against Aaron Rodgers, and they beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Okay, so he was capable of that kind of resilience off those kinds of pathetic performances in that year. Then we go to the next year, the game at New Orleans. It was week 8, but he threw another pick 6 that basically lost the game.
Right.
It ended the game. Do you remember this?
Yep.
Okay, and then the all-timer. Wasn't much more than a year ago. It was in early December at home on Sunday Night Football at Tampa, in that same stadium you just watched my Cowboys rock and roll in. He lost 9-0 in that game, 9-0. And it was all-time pathetic. It was indefensible. He threw for 214, no touchdowns and a pick, lost Chris Godwin to the knee injury, screaming at the sidelines at Dennis Allen. And it was 9-0 because guess what? A little trivia question. Guess how New Orleans got their 9 points? Off the foot of Brett Maher, Brett the Fret. Last year, he was a New Orleans Saint and had a decent year for them, but he made all 3 field goals that he attempted and they lost 9-0. Okay, so my point to you is, how can you get worse than that?
Right.
And off that, he managed to bounce back, as he often has, and he looked pretty good against the against the Eagles in the first playoff game. And then he got off to a rocky start against the Rams, and then he gets going and he scores 24 unanswered. And you know what happened at the end of the game? They blow a blitz and they lose 20. What was it? 30-27. Yep.
Skip, but here's where I'm going to push back. Is that in that situation, in 2019, it was 1 game. In 2020, it was 1 game. In 2021, it was 1 game.
Well, we didn't see several. In 2019, I gave you 3.
But in 2022, we saw a culmination. We saw maybe 2 games in which he played well, and the rest he played average to below average.
Okay.
So what they're starting to see, and I think what people are starting to say, well, Tom, it's time to go home, is that we're seeing the bad games come with greater regularity, and not with the infrequency that we used to see them in.
Okay. So you have made the case that he can't summons it up to do back-to-backs anymore, so you can't go 300. He's just not capable of that.
Right.
Although, I will remind you, if you do his last 2 full games played, if you eliminate the Atlanta where he forced his way into the lineup, I still don't get that, but if you just do Carolina, which was for all the NFC South marbles, he throws for 432 in that game, and then the other night, here's what happened the other night. Very quietly, he started to cook in the second half because my Cowboy pass rush started to tire out. You could just see it. They started to give him an extra second in the second half, and they started to go fast. Remember, Tom Brady led the National Football League this year in 4th quarter yards passing and in 4th quarter touchdown passes.
Right.
Why? Because they got forced to go fast. He's better. In some ways, he's calling his own plays, but they're just going faster. I don't like him when they play slow, and I don't think he enjoys playing slow because the slower they play, the older he looks. That's just me. But when they started playing faster in the second half, just very quietly, here's a trivia note for you. In the second half against my Dallas Cowboys, my game of the year by my Dallas Cowboys, would you believe that Tom Brady threw for, just in the second half alone, 255 yards.
Yeah, but Skip, they were Skip. But you got to realize they're down 3 scores.
Okay, I got it. But it's hard for any mortal to throw for 255. It's just a lot of yards because the defense is hot. It's leading the league in takeaways. And I don't care who you are, it's just hard to throw for 255 because if you doubled that, if you'd had that in the first half, remember his playoff record in that Super Bowl against Nick Foles was 505. Yeah. So if you double 255, you break your own playoff record.
But here's the thing, though, Skip. How many of those yards came in meaningful time? When the score was 6-0, 12-0, or 18-0. And now all of a sudden it's 24. Okay. And that's what all of a sudden when you start to get those yards.
Although, weirdly, if they had called the hold on Chris Godwin in the end zone and made that 2-pointer, and then if Mike Evans had caught the deep ball with 2 minutes left and they had scored a 2-pointer on that, all of a sudden it would have been an 8-point game, and then you'd have to pick your poison. Do we onside again, or do we see if we can hold them to a 3-and-out and try to get Brady 45 seconds or whatever?
Think about what you just said. All these things that got to go right for Tom Brady to win a game now. We never used to say, well, if they do this, if the Eagle land on the flagpole at noon and the wind doesn't blow from west to east, we got a chance to win this game. That's what we got to ask for, to Tom Brady to win a game now, Skip.
Okay, I don't want to undercut everything I said about Rain Dakota Prescott on Monday night, but I told you going into the game he was going to have all night long to throw the football, and he did, because they can't rush the passer without Shaq Barrett. Shaq was all they had, the equivalent of Micah Parsons. He was their Micah Parsons. And remember, he was the star in 2020 when, on their Super Bowl run. What, in the Super Bowl or in any big game in 2020? What, didn't he? Wasn't he the takeover king?
He's your one guy that can go get beat.
He's the one guy. And he tore his Achilles tendon against Lamar and the Ravens on that Thursday night. And that was the end of that deal, because they can't rush the passer. Okay? So they wound up 28th in pass rush. They wound up dead last in running the football. They wound up in 24th in what's called pass block win rate. So they weren't protecting him the way they did the two previous years, because the line was pretty much decimated and hit by retirements and all kinds of losses. But the point is that the defense, it wasn't half of what it was in the Super Bowl year, because you saw what Dak did to the defense. He shredded it. He just stood back there, had all night long, said, I'll take you, and then I'll take you, and then I'll take that touchdown and that touchdown.
But also, Skip, they were also 31st in yards per attempt, which means Tom Brady is not pushing the ball down the field. They're also 25th in third down conversion rate, which means Tom Brady is not converting. And if you go back and look at the previous year, when he finished second, they were second in points. Now all of a sudden they're like 20th in points or 22nd in points. Everything that they were first or second in, they were still number one in pass attempts. They were still number one in pass completions, but touchdowns dropped. Yards per attempt dropped. Third down conversion, red zone conversion. So see, we keep looking at, okay, the defense wasn't what it was. How about Tom Brady isn't what he was?
Okay, you can make that case. But I can also make the case that Pro Football Focus graded his receiving core 19th best this year. 19th best.
What would they grade him?
I don't know, but way down.
Yeah, exactly.
I got it. But let's remind everybody, when he had some time and when the chips got pushed to the middle of the table against Carolina, which at that point had a hot defense. Most people thought it was at least a top 10 defense under Steve Wilks, because that's his specialty. You remember what he did to Mike Evans, as we could see those 3 throws. So he's still capable. I don't see diminished arm talent, but that's just me. If we could see, this is to Mike Evans against
Skip,
Carolina.
it's more than just arm talent.
Okay, look at the protection. Okay. He can still get it out there. However far it needs to be thrown, he's still capable.
Skip, I believe every starting quarterback in the NFL, if you give him that kind of time, could hit Mike Evans. What made Tom Brady into great quarterbacks great is when they don't have that kind of time, and they can stare down the gun barrel and still make those throws.
Those are good throws. Then the other night late, if we could see what happens, he hits Julio. It's a 30-yarder for a touchdown, and I thought Julio was going to be a godsend for him, and he just could not, as you predicted, stay healthy. He really wasn't healthy the whole year. So when they finally got some rhythm late in the game, he hits that for 30 yards. Then he hits Cameron Brate for 8 more yards. Had some mustard on that throw. And then this is the 2-minute throw to Mike Evans, and I don't know. I was surprised he didn't catch it, because he usually catches those. Even if he had to lay out for it, I just thought he would have caught it. And it would have made it mildly, long shot interesting. Just long shot. Then at least you could have said, what are they going to do? Onside kick it or what? He does have a reputation for coming back. As he showed you 3 big times this year, he had 3 big comebacks. Okay. So in the end, there are teams out there that are very interested. I even read where, I think it was in USA Today, some speculation the Jets might be interested, because they keep saying, their owner kept saying the other day, I'll do anything to get a quarterback. They keep saying we're a quarterback away, because do they not have a talented defense? Well, sure they do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do they not have some skilled people? Yes,
absolutely.
They do. They absolutely do. Can they protect? I think their offensive line is pretty. I haven't studied it,
but
I
they
think it's pretty good.
Becton can't stay healthy. But they signed Dwayne Brown, who did a very good job.
Okay, so could they entice him to come for 1 year or whatever, and bedevil the Patriots in the same division, get to play him twice? I don't know, but it does seem like there's still some interest, and because of that, and because of what you said about can you quit on 8 and going 8 and 10. I'm pretty sure he'll say, yeah, I'll try that or that or that. And
he's earned the Skip. The thing that I look at is like his legacy. Well, Tom Brady built that legacy. Tom Brady gets to decide if he wants to continue to play.
Yep.
And I don't think, look, and we're gonna look back and say, well, remember his last year skipping Tampa? That thing didn't go well. If he plays another year, but you can't deny what the man has already done. Two things can be true. He could play bad the last 2 years of his career and still have the most impressive resume of anybody that's ever played the sport.
Agreed.
Or anybody that's ever played any sport if you want to combine sports. So what Tom has been able to do is nothing short of miraculous.
I got it. I appreciate that. The final issue that was raised, this is pure speculation, but our man Sean Payton, he has wanted to connect with Brady because they wanted to go as a package deal to the Dolphins, and then that got blown up. Right. But the point is, would Sean consider going to Tampa? I have no idea. It's feeling like the cupboard's too bare there. Yeah. Like there's not enough left there even for Tom to want to go back.
Skip, and they got a lot of guys that's making a lot of money that's older.
I agree.
And because they wanted to bring this thing back. And Skip, that's the thing is, like, when you win a Super Bowl, sometimes you just got to let guys go. Let them go to greener pastures. Try to get younger. Well, they wanted to bring everybody back because they felt that was the way to repeat, was bring everybody back. And maybe you brought some guys back that were a little long in the tooth. Well, you got these guys on the contract, and you're like, now what, Skip? So Tom is looking at it like, I don't believe I can win a championship here.
Yep. And remember, you questioned whether Gronk would want to come back, and then it was reported he called Tampa to just sort of stick his toe in the water. And they were like, well, we don't have any money. Well, I need some money.
But if you think about it, Skip, Tom Brady, everybody is not like Tom. Everybody give you the hometown discount. Gronk's like, I ain't give you no discount. I want all my money.
Yep. He's to the point in his career where he says, if I'm going to go through that again, you're going to have to pay me.
You're going to have to pay me.
Yeah.
And so this notion that what Tom has done a lot of great things. But what Tom has done is he got all these other teams looking at their players like, you see what Tom did?
Yep.
Okay, and? Yep. And Tom got a nice little windfall waiting for him.
Does he? I'd say.
Gronk's like, I ain't got that. He's like, I got a nice little gig, but it ain't his gig.
No, that's a good point. Whew.
A lot of people waiting to see what Tom Brady decides to do and what Aaron Rodgers decides to do. Big dominoes for next season,
hopefully
guys.
Takes his time this time.
All right,
no
when we
quick
come
decision.
back, Skip, thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Subscribe here to get the very latest from Skip and Shannon. Plus, go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.